retrospect, he should have made more Phoenixes.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to call sometimes. Just very, very, very brilliantly played by RainMan in that one. So we'll have to see if he can carry it into game number 2, which will be on Acheron Waste, which is the, like I was actually just mentioning, it's the kind of the map you think of when you think 3-base turtling Protoss with air. I mean, this is the one to go to on it. So let's see if he does the same attempt at the style there.
Yeah, I know personally that Darko does not like playing against mutas, and at this point I don't think anyone really likes playing against mutas because they're just so incredibly hard to deal with. But yeah, without further ado, we are here indeed on Acheron Waste, and in the top left we have the purple Protoss player from Team Mouse Control. It's Darkomicron against his red Zerg opponent in the bottom right from Team Knights Gaming, RainMan.
And yeah, so I mean, I would be very, very surprised to see Protoss not go for that 3-base turtle here, unless he just thinks he, like, it's one of those things, we've seen this a lot actually, where like the first game is a macro game and it's a dominant affair, and like, well, do you want to go for something more aggressive potentially? I mean, this is a hard map for, not the best map really for Zerg's third. It's, you want to take it a lot faster normally, and with the rocks here it's a bit more annoying, so earlier timings can be a bit more useful here as a Protoss player. But also, the ability to turtle is just so good that you really don't want to go for that on this one or try to punish something like that.
Yeah, it seemed, you know, at the end of Wings of Liberty, it was just so very typical of Zergs to take that early third. And once again, it's kind of cut them back into shape. Now that Zerg has decided they should either open blind roaches versus Protoss or go for that early speed. Or of course, just try to scout what his opponent's doing. Like, if your opponent is going Nexus first in his CVP, then of course you can afford to take a quick third.
And we'll see what they do decide to go for. We actually don't see a pool quite yet. Okay, he's going to make it now. So it's just standard, very standard 15 spawning pool timing. And on the side of Protoss, we see that low ground pylon. So once again, nothing too terribly surprising for me to these players right off the bat. And yeah, they both know pretty much what's up. I mean, Darkomicron has that probe in the base, checking things out as well. So actually, what was he going to go? Where is this? Okay, he was trying to, like, I think just try to dodge that probe, but not quite able to do it, so, well, the probe's like, time to go block that expansion.
Yep, that's his mission for the coming few minutes. He's
or he
actually
could just go over there.
Yeah, this time in case it's working out because the drone was actually chasing the probe, and now he's going to make this hexagonal patrol shape, which is actually, it's actually the best. If you're a Protoss and you want to block this, you do a hexagon, except you don't complete the last 2 connection points and you put it on patrol. So your probe will sort of bounce back and forth, but you didn't do too much of a good job at blocking, I'm afraid. Probe still has a lot of shields left, and Zerg takes the hatchery uncontested, basically.
Yep, yeah, blocked it for just a tiny bit there, but when you have to go back to base and kind of do your own thing, sometimes it's hard to keep that probe going. Not really the number of waypoints that you really see. Like I said, that patrol allows your probe to keep moving at the same time while also going to go handle other things back in your own base. So, but we don't see that there, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. Overlord scouting out the front as well, sees pretty much what you would expect to see. The Forge done, Nexus about halfway done, and we should be going into a pretty standard game here. And the Lynx should keep this probe from blocking this third hatchery at all.
Yeah, but the more important thing is that Darko has done with this probe is that RainMan has clearly shown his intention to take a third, and he has just that. He's done just that. You know, Darko can safely assume that RainMan has taken one, and he delayed the Lynx a bit. You know, if he'd gone straight to his base, the Lynx might have come in. And actually, looking at the distance, I don't think that's very likely. But you know, putting down any delay possible for these Lynx to even get in the first place, all the better.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we saw what a couple Lynx could do in that previous game, but I mean, we're not going to see anything remotely like that here. Don't see that same Link count. By that I mean, well, 2 compared to 4, which isn't that big a difference. But well, it made a big difference in that last game. So, and yeah. Let us see what it is. Well, not a whole lot going on right now. I mean, this is kind of the period where they just kind of settle down and tech up and get their economy rolling.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about RainMan. I do know that Darkomicron took a year off of between schools, basically. You know, between graduating and a new school to start, you know, to just do professional StarCraft for a year and work. I'm not sure. Oh, I actually kind of do know about what his intentions were for last year, but not that I'm not entitled to say, but it's kind of his thing. Don't know a whole lot about RainMan, but we know that Darko is, you know, he's been focusing on StarCraft for so long now that he's certainly, you know, reached the level of one of the best players here in the Netherlands. But especially against Zerg, nerves sometimes seem to get the best of him, or just the fact that he has a tough time playing against mutas, which I think him opening Stargate is very clever. Stargate is as viable as it can get these days in the metagame. and it will allow you to be just a bit more safer against Mutas rather than having to throw down, 2 panic Stargates to defend against an oncoming Mutas onslaught.
Yeah, the only way to really strongly defend against Mutas is Phoenixes or Blink Stalkers, and well, Blink Stalkers take a decent while to get to, whereas the Phoenixes start getting out pretty early and building up that count, so it's a bit safer a way to play against them. So I agree, it's a very smart way for him to do it. We see the, well, we're looking at a very similar game to last game with the Roach Warren. Evolution Chamber, Lair all in the way, 2 guesses natural. Looks like we're watching, well, we've already had a couple of these so far today where we kind of watch the same game twice yet again, and I mean, do the build you're comfortable with. Pretty much any point in time is the right way to play it, I think.
It's almost a curse. It's almost like I'm cursed to cast games that almost go the same twice in a row. Not that that's necessarily bad, because like I've pointed out in the past before, players, when in a competitive, in a tournament scene, will often fall back on the things that they're the most comfortable doing in a matchup. This might make them a bit predictable, but unless you're really, like, if you know, you can't ever say for sure that this is what your opponent is going to be doing, straight from the get-go. Nobody ever really plays blindly against their opponent in a tournament setting. It's very risky to just try and blind counter your opponent. So in that case, I never said it's a bad thing, but if your build hasn't succeeded in the first try, doing it again is quite risky.
Yeah, it's just, but I mean, at the same time, like, when you're trying to qualify for an offline finals and really trying to earn a name for yourself, I think that's a really good thing that this tournament can do. I mean, an English broadcasted, internationally broadcasted tournament for Dutch players. I mean, this is a really good place to earn your keep. And if you want to play basically as solid as you can and make it to that offline finals and make a name for yourself a bit and play against those really big names.
I just want to point out that this is not necessarily Dutch, just a Dutch tournament. We actually already have one. I think he's Norwegian.
A Swede, I believe, actually made
Swede,
it through.
sorry. Yeah, he will be at the offline finals, of course. His team will be sponsoring his trip there. And I think
Storm is Danish in the next match.
Yeah, exactly. Danish player Storm also has a chance at qualifying for the offline finals. So yeah, this is technically, it's focused on Dutch esports, but we're not discriminating.
Yeah.
So looking at the builds for both players, it's pretty clear what they're going to go for. I see a very early infestation pit here from RainMan, as well as getting range upgrades, which indicates to me, which is actually getting all upgrades, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. What do you think the plan is for getting the melee and the range upgrades at the same time here? What's he really trying to go for with that? I
honestly think swarm hosts, but he's actually going into a quick hive. So I'm just fairly confused to the fact that he's also getting a micro hatch while getting a 4th hatch at the exact same time. He just feels very safe. Whereas Darko, I think he's poised to take a 3rd, and he has a decent composition. But I would not be surprised if we're going to see, he's adding on a ton of gates, so he almost has to go with this once his Colossi and his range and his armor upgrades finish. And we do have Pathfinding Lands now on the way for RainMan, so he's going to be doing something with Infestors. But this build doesn't seem to be really focused on hitting a timer or doing something, so it's almost like he's freestyling it, except for the quick hive. That's really something exceptional.
Yeah, like, he's really going for everything right now. All the upgrades, everything you could possibly think of. Macro hatch, extra hatchery, and, well, he doesn't realize that a 7-gate push is coming with Colossus support. It's a bit of it's a small but pretty strong army. It's going to come down a lot to what this Colossus can do. And, well, there are a lot of queens defensively, and that's really what RainMan's relying on here mostly for defense. Has 43 lings as well, but it's 43 lings and 10 queens, and that's what he has. Yeah.
Something I really want to point out, Darko is completely cut probes and is at 47 workers. If you get good force field here, you can actually cast a lot of these lings.
And yeah, now the Immortal's going to work, and the Queens, I mean, they're just cut off from the rest of the battle, and the Colossus does take a lot of damage, and it's taking a lot of fire from these Queens, actually, and the Queen's trying to do the rest to take that Colossus down, but it does live through it, and there's still a pretty significant amount of Darkomicron's force left over here. The Colossus still stands at very low health, lives from the Queens trying to help mitigate that DPS as well. The Colossus, okay, he'll just barely live as well, so nice little fight there for Darkomicron. Finds himself ahead in supply and powering forward, and we do have some Infestors here defensively, but...
Oh, these Infestors are going to get picked up by the Phoenix.
Yeah.
Huge win here for Darko. He managed to pick off so many Queens. Only 3 now on the map, so that is actually going to limit the amount of injects for the Zerg.
Force field's not quite there. The Ling's trying to get onto it. The Colossus being microed so well.
Oh, it lives in GG. Oh, with a very ballsy 2-base all-in. I like this play by Darkomicron. he takes out RainMan, who was kind of going for everything. He was on 80 drones. He had 8 queens. He had all sorts of tech. Best thing to do in that kind of situation is just go kill him. And that's what Darko did.
Yeah, you were saying like, well, play the style or well, if you see your opponents being as greedy as humanly possible, kill them. And that was very much what he did. It's like, okay, well, I have the tech to do this. I'll just add on a bunch of gates and go. And he did, and it worked out brilliantly. The Colossus control, that one Colossus did a ton of work, and actually is still alive at the end, has 16 kills. And that was really different. Keeping him alive made it a really strong fight. The Queen's really close to taking it out, though.
Yeah, it was a close fight, but catching off those Lings and those Queens at the start was huge. It was almost a perfect fight for him there, keeping that Colossus alive, because you could see RainMan was doing everything he can to pick off that Colossus. And even more importantly, RainMan had quite a lot of Queens, but they were all quite low on energy, so the effective amount of transfuses was quite low. And well, just to be fair, Darko hit at the perfect moment before 2-2 was hitting and before RainMan had much of a standing army.